Hello everyone. Today I decided to have a new special on Valentine's Day going over my favorite rom-coms from every year I've been alive. Now, previous years I went over my favorite films every year I've been alive, favorite horror films, action films, sci-fi films, and comic book films. This year, since it was my birthday tomorrow and it's Valentine's today, I decided to share my favorite rom-coms. Now me, I'm a hopeless romantic even though I've been jaded and loved by the past. Days like this, I'm like Batman and Lego Batman, where I'm in my robe by myself watching Jerry Maguire or something like that. Yeah, when I was younger, I never really liked rom-coms, but I watched it with my mom and dad and on VHS, watched stuff with my sister, watched it on TNT. And it's one of those things where now that I've gotten older, I'm like, we used to have a lot of good rom-coms. It's kind of a lost genre outside of streaming, you know? And you don't really have the major rom-coms with all the big actors like you used to. And I'm going to count rom-coms as far as romantic comedies. There's some great romance films, but they're more dramas or dramedies. So this will start from the year I was born on to present day. Before I continue, get some drinks, get some snacks, and ladies and gentlemen out there, let me know your favorite rom-coms from every year you've been alive or just in general. What are your favorite rom-coms? Starting off at 1991 is Doc Hollywood. I love this film with Michael J. Fox, Julie Warner, and Woody Harrelson. It's pretty much about a man who wants to be a plastic surgeon in Hollywood, and he takes the wrong turn into a small town, and he finds love, he finds adventure, he finds a lot about himself in this small town, and it's a nice rom-com from 1991. After that, in 1992 is House Sitter, a wonderful comedy starring Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn and Dana Delaney. This is a film about a man trying to make up with his fiancee, build her a house, and there's this waitress he finds, and she ends up basically house sitting the house, and she comes into his life and disrupts it. She turns his life upside down, and both the wrong reasons and the right reasons. This is a wonderful comedy. Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn would later reunite in the remake of The Out-of-Towners, but they are terrific in this film, as well as The Townsfolk. Like, it's just a funny film seeing Steve Martin dealing with these set of circumstances and this character. Next up in 1993 is Sleepless in Seattle. Sleepless in Seattle is a classic with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Right after Joe versus a Volcano and Before You've Got Mail, I love this with Tom Hanks as a widower, trying to find love, his son wanting a new mother, going on this radio show, Meg Ryan listening to it. She's engaged to Bill Pullman, and it's great because it deals with long distance romance, you know, and kind of like the will they won't they situation. Great classic film. Every 90s kid, you know this film. This is a great film. Also has Rob Reiner and Rosie O'Donnell, and who could forget that Empire State Building ending. I love the two different perspectives with men and women over like An Affair to Remember, and then like men getting emotional over The Dirty Dozen. That was such a funny scene. 1994 would be Four Weddings and a Funeral, another classic film starring Hugh Grant and Andie MacDowell. I love this. It deals with a group of friends going through four weddings and of course a funeral with some tragedy. This is a great rom-com with like best friends taking it to the next level in a way, and also like it's just a film about life. Like anybody could relate to these events in different people's lives or their own lives really. And that's one thing I love about this film. It has a little bit of heart to it and drama in real life. 1995 was a crazy year for rom-coms. There are so many movies. Honorable mentions would be something to talk about. One of my favorites is the remake of Sabrina starring Harrison Ford, but I think I would have to pit While You Were Sleeping starring Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman. I love this film. It's also a great Christmas film to watch around the holidays. And Sandra Bullock pretty much works at a train station, and she's crushing over this man played by Peter Gallagher. Well, he ends up getting in an accident, and she goes to check up on him, and they pretty much think she's his girlfriend. And there's a misunderstanding there, and she goes along with that lie, even though some family members kind of catch on. And it's great because she's dealing with this situation while also falling in love with the man's brother, played by Bill Pullman. This is a wonderful rom-com. After that, in 1996, is Jerry Maguire. Yes, it's a cynical world we live in, and it wouldn't be anywhere complete without you. You complete me. And it shows you what happens when you rush into a relationship for the right and wrong reasons. It's great seeing Cuba Gooding Jr. in this. Show me the money. So many iconic lines. I love it where Renee Zellweger goes to Tom Cruise once he writes that memorandum and gets fired. He's like, I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do, and flip out. After that, in 1997 is Fool's Rush, and may the late, great Matthew Perry rest in peace. I love this film. As good as it gets is another film that's very close to me, but this one, just dealing with being an Hispanic, you know, and the culture clash, and the seeing Matthew Perry and Selma Hayek deal with their families and seeing the culture and social class differences. That's what makes this movie so relatable and so funny to me. I love this, especially like when Matthew Perry first goes over Selma Hayek's house and meets her family, and then you see her ex there, Chewie, and he's just like, hey, Alex, here's Chewie. Hello, Chewie. I'm Luke Skywalker. And like the dry sense of humor there is just so funny, and seeing Chewie not have any part of it. See them deal with religion, with like being Catholic versus being Presbyterian. Seeing Matthew Perry's parents get burned up in the sunburned when they're out in the sun. Some funny stuff there, but also like Alex, you know, having a one-night stand, getting a girl pregnant, and then having to deal with not only a relationship, but they also have to deal with each other's families. And that's something that's interesting with this, because no matter how you go about it, that's something everybody deals with. No matter if a relationship is rushed or if they take their time with the relationship, if it's slow or fast, you always have to deal with each other's families. And I like that in this movie. Also, Alex going through a journey of figuring out that maybe things do happen for a reason, that it wasn't an accident. You know, there are signs everywhere. It's a lot of great humor here, and it's just a feel-good movie. It's from the director of Ever After, Hitch, and Sweet Home Alabama. After that, in 1998, is the end of the Meg Ryan Tom Hanks trilogy with You've Got Mail. I love this film. This is a classic, and it's almost prophetic before online and social media, the way dating's been, you know, long-distance relationships. I love this movie with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. You also have Greg Kinnear and Parker Posey, but what makes this interesting is that they like each other online. They're pen pals online, and they hate each other in real life. Meg Ryan works at a bookstore. Tom Hanks and his father buy out the smaller bookstore, Fox, F-O-X. And Meg Ryan hates him, but doesn't know that Tom Hanks is her pen pal. So they learn that about each other, and I love that these two people hate each other, but actually have a lot more in common than they realize. There's that wonderful scene where they do realize that they're the other person, or at least Tom Hanks realizes that Meg Ryan's the woman he's been talking to.
You are nothing but a suit.
That's my cue.
And Tom Hanks, the way he looked, that was a gut punch that you just felt. He is such a wonderful actor, and they're great in this film. After that, in 1999, I love Notting Hill. That is a classic film. Some part of me is wondering, like, am I going to be working somewhere and see Emma Watson come in and film a movie nearby, you know? But my favorite film, actually, in 1999 for a rom-com has to be Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone. This is such a hilarious movie. You have Christopher Walken as his father. He's kind of eccentric. I mean, when is Christopher Walken not eccentric? But he built this bunker in the fears that nuclear Armageddon would happen during the Cold War. Well, there was a test, and he thought it was the big one. They go under, and Brendan Fraser was raised in a bunker for like almost 40 years. And he comes back up to the surface, and it's the 90s, and he still has the sensibilities of like the late 50s, early 60s. It's crazy seeing that and seeing values that were gone during that time. This is such a funny fish out of water love story between Alicia Silverstone and Brendan Fraser in this film. Next up in 2000 is the comedy What Women Want. Men out there, if you listen to Bitch by Meredith Brooks and put a blow dryer in a bathtub, it's not going to make you hear what women want. It's going to electrocute you to death. Yeah, this is a funny movie with Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt, where this like misogynistic womanizer ends up getting the ability to hear what women want. And he goes through an arc here. That's one thing that I was kind of upset about in the remake, What Men Want, is that they just made it stupid. Of like, men are just stupid who think about nothing but sex. And I was like, you could have done a cool arc here like they did with Mel Gibson, where he learns to have more empathy and care about what women are thinking and not just treating them as objects. And I like that. And him falling for Helen Hunt, who at first he sees as a competitor with a woman getting into that advertising business world, but then learns to see her as a partner and values her and stuff. And I like seeing that. It's a nice rom-com that also is a very fascinating character study as well, with a single father who is a womanizing jackass, basically. It's just a shame that the actor went crazy after this. In 2001, there was a lot of great rom-coms. Serendipity is up there, but what edges it out for me is America's Sweethearts, also starring John Cusack, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Julia Roberts, and Billy Crystal. Christopher Walken's actually in this movie as well. with Hank Azaria. I love this. It pretty much deals with a Hollywood it couple, the perfect America sweethearts for Hollywood. And what happens? These people hate each other and they're actually separated. And it's John Cusack dealing with being back with his ex after a whole affair scandal, dealing with press junkets, and then dealing with feelings he has for his ex's sister, played by Julia Roberts. Wonderful comedy. If you love Hollywood and you love movies and rom-coms, this is a perfect combination. Next up in 2002 is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Tied with it is Sweet Home Alabama, starring Reese Witherspoon and Josh Lucas. I love that film, but My Big Fat Greek Wedding is an iconic film, and it's one film that is just pure, you know? This is done by HBO. It's an independent film, and I love how intimate and low budget this original film is compared to the other two. This felt the most pure. And you don't have to be Greek. Anybody could watch this and relate to it, you know, dealing with like each other's families, getting married, you know. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can relate to no matter what your background is. And that's what I love, is that it's just a great story and a great romantic comedy, you know. And seeing the shenanigans of their family and the father with Windex, I mean, it's just a feel-good comedy that anybody could watch. Next up in 2003 is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Yeah, this started the Matthew McConaughey slouch pose on the posters. But what can I say? I like this movie. It's a funny comedy with Kate Hudson writing this article about how to lose a guy in 10 days and then having Matthew McConaughey be her guinea pig, so to speak, and how she messes with him. I love that scene with Madison Square Garden where you think they're going to go see the basketball game and she takes him to a Celine Dion concert. Stuff like that. But then secretly they start to fall for each other. Kate Hudson sees it as an experiment, but then she starts to fall for the person. So that's interesting. It's a great feel-good early 2000s rom-com. Next up in 2004 is Chasing Liberty. I always love this film. Seeing the president's daughter go off on her own and then meeting this person who's secretly like Secret Service. I love it. Matthew Good. It's the first movie I saw Matthew Good in before Stoker and Watchmen. Mandy Moore, great as ever. I love this film. It's such a feel-good kind of like teenage romance European travel movie. Next up in 2005 is Just Like Heaven. Another great Reese Witherspoon rom-com. Also tied that year would probably be The Wedding Date with Deborah Messing and Dermot Mulroney. Great film, but Just Like Heaven is one of those feel-good kind of like deep movies that has Mark Ruffalo as well. And it's great seeing him see the spirit of this person, and then there's more to that plot. And seeing him fall in love with a person that's not tangible, like he falls in love with a ghost basically. And that's so cool. I like the twists and turns and the themes of fate, so to speak. It's a great film, and a very underrated one at that. Next up in 2006 is Failure to Launch. Like I said, the slouch pose poster. I love this. This is almost like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but he's like me. I'm kidding. No, Matthew McConaughey's just like, he's still with his parents. He hasn't moved out. And it's a failure to launch, so to speak. So they hire Sarah Jessica Parker, who basically dates these men to help them get out of the nest, so to speak. You have Kathy Bates and Terry Bradshaw. They are hilarious as Matthew McConaughey's parents. Yeah, I love this movie. This is such a funny comedy. Bradley Cooper in an early role. Next up in 2007, this is a no-brainer. Dan in Real Life is such an underrated comedy starring Steve Carell and Dane Cook. Early Emily Blunt role, and a funny role, actually. I like this. He is basically a widower who has some teenage daughters. He's going to a cabin to visit family, and he finds this woman at a bookstore, and it kind of clicks with her. It's like, I think I may have found the one. The thing is, the one is the girlfriend of his brother. So his brother's dating the woman of his dreams, so to speak. And it's such a funny comedy with a bunch of shenanigans involving the family and the siblings and everybody. Such a perfect holiday movie and an underrated comedy starring Steve Carell. After that, at 2008 is Maid of Honor. This is a really excellent Patrick Dempsey and Michelle Monaghan film. What Happens in Vegas is a close one too, but Maid of Honor is one of those films where it's kind of like My Best Friend's Wedding in a way, where Patrick Dempsey's his best friends with Michelle Monaghan, and she's getting married to Kevin McKidd in Scotland, and he has feelings for her. He never wanted to break the friendship, but he has feelings. And what I love about this rom-com is you're not really sure if they're going to be together by the end, and that's a sign of a really good rom-com. Even though stuff can feel formulaic when you really don't know the outcome and you feel like they might not get together, that's when it makes it all that much more rewarding. After that, in 2009 is The Proposal. The Proposal is such a funny Sandra Bullock, Ryan Reynolds film. It's funny how they listed 2009 as Sandra Bullock's comeback or whatever. I'm like, Sandra Bullock never left. She was great in everything, even The Lake House. But anyway, I digress. The late, great Betty White is fantastic in this. Craig T. Nelson and Mary Steenburgen are a married couple in this, like they are in The Book Club. But I love the comedy here of Sandra Bullock needing to be a citizen, needing to get married, or otherwise she'd be deported. And then Ryan Reynolds having to go along with it. Be with a boss who hates his guts and he hates her guts. And it's kind of like the opposites attract sort of thing, like You've Got Mail, where they start to fall for each other and learn more about each other. And it's a great film. It's Complicated is also an excellent comedy from that year. 2010 would probably be Our Family Wedding. I'm a mixologist. I love Carlos Mencia and Forrest Whitaker in this movie, America Ferrera. This is such a funny movie, again, of like worlds clashing, but also like kids dealing with their parents. And like it's basically kind of like a Father the Bride or Meet the Parents. It's like that type of formula of like, here's what happens when two different families come together and have to learn how to adapt with each other after the kids fall in love, and there's a lot of funny stuff that could happen there, a lot of relatable stuff as well. And then that year, I would probably also list Just Right with Queen Latifah and Common. That's an awesome movie. Next up at 2011 is Just Go With It. This is a fantastic comedy starring Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler. Probably one of their best. They are so great together, and it's just a feel-good movie with a funny cameo from Dave Matthews and Nicole Kidman. 2012, two films that I love, but they kind of count more as dramas, are The Vow and Stuck in Love. But as far as rom-com goes, I have to give it to This Means War. Funny Reese Witherspoon film with her falling for two agents, CIA agents, played by Chris Pine and Tom Hardy. Yes, they both had a history in Star Trek as well. Yeah, I love this movie. It's such a funny buddy comedy movie. After that, at 2013 is About Time. Now, even though this does have dramatic moments, there are a lot of funny moments. I love this time-traveling tale, and it's just a heartfelt movie. Warm Bodies would also be up there that year, kind of a zombie Romeo and Juliet. And the part with the father really hit me hard. That just tore me apart in About Time. But I also like the comedy with his wife, with them dating and him trying different scenarios and stuff. Like, there's a lot of funny humor there. And really, it's a movie about appreciating the moment, not wondering what could be or what would happen, just appreciating the now, After that, in 2014, I would have to say The Other Woman. This isn't entirely a traditional rom-com, but it's funny dealing with this man who's a womanizer who's been cheating and teaming up with the other mistresses to get back at him. Leslie Mann's in this, along with Kate Upton and Cameron Diaz, Don Johnson. Some funny stuff in this movie. This is a funny movie. 2015, I didn't like any of the movies. I don't know if it was just me being jaded in love at that point, but 2015, there was shit that year. I did not like any of the rom-coms that year, guys. I'm sorry. 2016, on the other hand, though, we have Mother's Day, Gary Marshall's last film. Wonderful film with Kate Hudson, Julia Roberts. A lot of actors are in this. Jason Sudeikis, Jennifer Aniston. I love the romance between Jason Sudeikis and Jennifer Aniston in this, but also that year you had Sing Street, wonderful rom-com musical, as well as Karen Kingsbury's The Bridge. Yes, I hate Hallmark movies. My mom watches them, and I just roll my eyes with the music and everything, but I sat down with Katie Finley there for The Bridge, and that was a pretty good story, I have to say. Like, if you watch any Hallmark movie, or are forced to watch one, try The Bridge. 2017 was another year like 2015 where I didn't like too many, but if I had to say one, it'd probably be How to Be a Latin Lover. I like the humor there of this man dating older women, getting dumped, and having to learn to date women his own age and live life without basically mooching off of another rich woman. Selma Hayek being his sister. Rob Lowe has a funny part in this. And then The Big Sick is also a funny movie. That's a funny, like, culture clashing movie there with young lovers. I like that film. Next up in 2018, I would probably have to say Crazy Rich Asians. That was such an awesome movie and a great rom-com. In addition to that, I think Juliet Naked with Ethan Hawke and Rose Byrne was another excellent indie film. In 2019, that easily goes to Always Be My Maybe. I love this film with Randall Park and Ali Wong, and who could forget Keanu Reeves playing himself in that one part? There's so much funny humor there, but it shows you like best friends turning to ultimate soulmates. And it's one of those two where it doesn't end the way a traditional rom-com ends. They still have to work on themselves before being with each other, and ultimately that's kind of like real life, Get your own shit sorted out before you put that onto someone else, And that's what they kind of show here. And someone there to like push you out of your comfort zone. After that is Palm Springs. Yeah, I love that film. That is a great rom-com slash time traveling, time loop Groundhog Day adventure. That is such a cool film. If you love sci-fi or time travel movies, and rom-coms is like the perfect mix. Another film that was excellent that year, I thought, is Holiday with Luke Bracey and Emma Roberts. Huge Emma Roberts fan. Emma Roberts, Emma Watson, I'm an Emma fan. 2021 was another year that was kind of difficult for me. I couldn't really list one, but if I had to list something that was like a rom-com, I'd probably say Licorice Pizza. Not a bad film. Philip Seymour Hoffman's son act in a movie, seeing Bradley Cooper in a small part, definitely had the feeling of like Boogie Nights and Inherent Vice from that director. 2022 would probably go to The Lost City. That was such a fun movie with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum played a really good part in that. Daniel Radcliffe was great as a villain. He took a different turn in Harry Potter, let me say. That was a fun kind of feel-good adventure romance film. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Romance in the Stone. And then that year, I'd also say Marry Me with Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez. That was a surprise. For 2023, my favorite rom-com would have to be At Midnight with Monica Barbaro and Diego Boneta. They were so great together. Even though the film itself might have had some flaws, the chemistry the actors had more than made up for it. And it was just great seeing them two together. It was just electric. It felt like an old-fashioned love story. It felt like something made in the 50s or something like Walk in the Clouds, you know. And I liked that. It was an old-school romance film, and I wouldn't mind seeing them two and like a better rom-com, you know, like the chemistry they had was just great, off the charts. As far as this year, I haven't seen too many, but past weekend I'd probably go to Upgraded or Lisa Frankenstein, probably Lisa Frankenstein. Anyway, that was a quick little special going over my favorite rom-coms from every year I've been alive. Thank you if you made it this far. That was a long video. It's hot and humid right now, but I'm going to enjoy playing Tomb Raider Remastered and then celebrate my birthday tomorrow. We're going to have a birthday video haul, so if you want to come celebrate, I'll put a video tomorrow night. But in the meantime, may everyone out there, whether you have some special someone, special lady in your life, if you have just yourself, let's all love each other. Be kind to one another. And may everyone have a happy Valentine's Day. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. Till next time.